Sensation. This is a real victory for the Ukrainian armed forces. Trump is going all in. Harsh revenge on Putin. The Ukrainian armed forces will receive something incredible. The White House has approved the sale of 1,000 missiles to Ukraine. This has never happened before. What kind of missiles are these and what targets can they strike? And how could the delivery of these missiles turn the tide at the front? Watch this.
An American congratulation for Ukraine's Independence Day. Following Keith Kellogg, American cruise missiles will be sent to Ukraine.
It is an honor for me to present you with this award. Thank you.
According to the Wall Street Journal, the Donald Trump administration has approved the sale to Ukraine of more than 3,000 extended-range attack munition air-launched missiles.
It should be noted that neither the Pentagon nor the White House has officially confirmed the information about the sale of air-launched missiles to Ukraine, which, according to media reports, are supposed to be delivered to the Ukrainian side within the next 6 weeks. Therefore, we can say that this is a so-called controlled information leak. That is when the Russian Federation is made aware of the White House administration's plans.
A few days earlier, Russian terrorists launched a missile strike on an American company's factory in western Ukraine. Essentially, Putin nullified Trump's claim that the presence of American business in Ukraine is, in itself, a guarantee of security.
What did you say to Vladimir Putin about yesterday's strike on the American factory in Ukraine?
I told him that I was not happy about it. I'm not happy about anything that's happening in this war.
Sometime later, the President of the United States made an important statement. Donald Trump admitted that Ukraine cannot win the war by only defending itself.
It's very difficult, if not impossible, to win a war without attacking the aggressor country, just as if a great sports team with a fantastic defense were not allowed to play offense. There's no chance of victory. It's the same with Ukraine and Russia. The dishonest and terribly incompetent Joe Biden did not allow Ukraine to fight back, only to defend itself. And what came of it?
According to experts, the supply of long-range air-launched missiles is Trump's logical response to the demonstrated unwillingness of the Russian dictator to negotiate.
The so-called aloesi, that is, a retaliatory strike from the United States. Moreover, I do not rule out that, along with the possible supply of strike weapons, permission will also be granted to carry out a retaliatory strike on the territory of the Russian Federation.
The key aspect of the supply of American air-to-surface missiles, which, as reported, have been paid for by Ukraine's European allies, is their large quantity, specifically 3,350 missiles, and their strike range up to 450 kilometers.
450 kilometers covers virtually the entire rear infrastructure of the Russian occupation army directly on the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine. Additionally, if permission is granted to use these strike assets on the territory of the Russian Federation, this would encompass the entire rear logistics of the Russian army, and accordingly, legitimate military targets on Russian territory. This is significantly, almost by a third, greater than the technical and tactical specifications of the American attack EMS.
The combination of the number and range of ERA missiles means that, unlike the scarce Storm Shadow and ATACMS, these missiles can be used much more frequently, including for precision strikes against fighters, bombers, and launchers of the occupying army.
First and foremost, it appears that air bases will be the primary focus of increased attention from the Ukrainian defense forces, plus, accordingly, the launchers and sites. These are respectively the locations from which UAVs and likewise cruise and ballistic missiles are launched on the territory of the Russian Federation.
Urgent. The Kremlin is hiding a disaster. It has been burning for 5 days already. An oil collapse in the Russian Federation. Ukrainian armed forces drones have done the incredible. Sensational. Ukraine delivers a devastating strike. This is the liberation of Donbass. It will reach beyond the Urals. Ukraine has unveiled a new deadly missile. These shots will surprise you. All the details are in the report.
A successful offensive operation. The occupiers lost about a company of personnel. The main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense and the Third Corps drove out the Russians and regained control over the settlement of Novomikhailivka in the Donetsk region.
This allows the Ukrainian defense forces to strengthen their defensive positions in this direction and moreover to improve the capabilities of the Ukrainian defense forces in using unmanned aerial vehicles and accordingly taking into account the terrain to improve the overall nature of the Ukrainian defense forces positions for further repelling attacks by the occupiers.
The Kremlin is striving to seize the entire territory of the Donetsk region, which has long been a target of the Russian dictator. In particular, he has stated that he would freeze the war in exchange for full control over the region, but the defense forces continue to push the enemy back and fight for every inch of Ukrainian land.
At the moment, the occupiers have set themselves the task of taking control of the largest industrial centers. These are Slovyansk, Kramatorsk, Druzhkivka and Kostiantynivka, plus the Pokrovsk agglomeration, Pokrovsk and the peaceful city of Dobropilya. In other words, the occupiers are well aware of the scenario ahead, extremely heavy losses in personnel and equipment, and accordingly an active nature of hostilities, which according to British intelligence could drag on for several years. This is called the so-called up to 5 years scenario for establishing full control over the Donetsk region. That is why, accordingly, the occupiers are trying to exert military and political pressure on both the United States and Ukraine.
Meanwhile, the Ukrainian armed forces are successfully attacking the enemy in the rear. Special Operations Forces and the Security Service of Ukraine struck an infrastructure facility at the Ust-Luga seaport terminal in the Leningrad region. The Ust-Luga seaport terminal is considered one of Russia's key logistics hubs in the Baltic Sea. It is actively used for exporting energy resources via the so-called Shadow Fleet, which operates in circumvention of international sanctions.
It should be noted that the Ust-Luga port has already been repeatedly targeted by strikes from the Ukrainian Defense Forces and the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. This concerns the Novatek terminals, which are a key supplier of finished products. Once again, I want to emphasize that we are talking about petroleum products delivered to end consumers such as India, the People's Republic of China, as well as a number of European consumers.
The Novoshakhtinsk oil refinery, the only operating refinery in the Rostov region and the main supplier of petroleum products in southern Russia, has been burning for the 4th day in a row.
Yes, we're now approaching the designated site, carefully moving to a safe distance.
It'll go.
More!
Yeah, it hasn't stopped for even a single minute at all.
Since the beginning of August, at least 10 major Russian energy facilities, including refineries, have been hit by drone strikes. At least 4 plants have halted production. Meanwhile, as Russia deals with the aftermath, Ukraine has unveiled its new Long Neptune missile for the first time. It is capable of striking targets at a distance of up to 1,000 kilometers.
Initially, the R-360 Neptune missile had a range of about 280 kilometers. The warhead has also been upgraded. Previously, the warhead weighed about 150 kilograms. At present, the technical specifications have not been disclosed, but it is reported that the warhead of this missile has been significantly increased.
Ukrainian Marines have also showcased their own surface drone, the Barracuda. The drone's design features a modular system that allows for the use of various types of weaponry. The released video shows the use of single-shot grenade launchers. The drone is also capable of mining the water area. Meanwhile, the Trump administration has approved the sale to Ukraine of more than 3,000 air-launched missiles and rams with a strike range from 250 to 450 kilometers.
These missiles are intended for destroying ground and naval targets. Once again, I want to draw attention to the quantity and the technical and tactical characteristics. In other words, this means that at the moment, if the United States gives a positive decision, Ukraine's defense forces could have total control over legitimate military targets on the territory of the Russian Federation, including up to Moscow. The thing is, these missiles have been specifically modified for the F-16s, which have already been delivered to the Ukrainian side, and there are about 100 of these aircraft. And accordingly, if they enter Russian airspace, the range for striking legitimate targets on Russian territory increases significantly.
The deal is included in a military aid package worth $850 million, which is largely funded by European countries and provides for the supply of a number of other weapons.
Shock! Estonia is opening a new front. Russian propagandists are in a panic, shouting from TV screens about an impending nightmare. Is Tallinn really preparing to attack Russia? Or is it the Kremlin deliberately stirring up hysteria against its Baltic neighbors? The truth, which will surprise you, is coming up in this story.
Kremlin propagandists have received new directives from above, along with fresh talking points from Putin. It seems the bunker dweller has finally decided whom he wants to attack next, and has already begun the ideological preparation of the population for another invasion. Now, the Kremlin has set its sights on one of the NATO countries, namely Estonia.
The Estonian Foreign Ministry has banned its citizens from traveling to Russia. Special attention should be paid to an article in the Polish publication On It, which states that Estonia is ready to launch a preemptive strike against Russia. Estonia against Russia.
And even though Estonia is 300 times smaller than Russia, and it seems that even the Kremlin propagandists themselves don't take such a scenario seriously on their broadcasts, an order is an order, which means the population of Eritrea needs to be actively prepared for a new military conflict.
Estonia plans to increase its military spending to 5.4% of GDP within 4 years. And right now, Estonia is already strengthening its border with our country. The federal authorities are erecting barriers along more than 300 kilometers. The civilian population is preparing for a hypothetical conflict with Moscow. People in the border regions are building personal underground bunkers in case of nuclear war and joining the so-called Defense League in case a conventional war breaks out.
And this is absolutely true. Estonia is preparing not to attack but to defend itself from Putin, especially since the Russian Foreign Ministry officially considers the Baltics a potential zone for another conflict.
The Journal of the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, International Affairs published an article about the Baltic Sea in which it suggested considering it a potential theater of military operations.
This is a specific operation by Russian special services aimed at destabilizing the situation in our country. We are constantly experiencing various provocations directed at us. This is ongoing and we are constantly prepared for more serious provocations and aggression, and as they say, we are waiting for it. In other words, we are ready for this and prepared to defend ourselves.
And with each passing day, there are more and more Russian provocations at the border with Estonia. We're talking about everything from cyber attacks to mysterious jamming of satellite signals. The Kremlin doesn't hesitate to use its reconnaissance drones on the territory of a NATO country. Meanwhile, official Tallinn is already actively preparing to repel potential Russian occupiers, increasing defense spending, conducting exercises, and hastily mining its borders with Russia in case of a military invasion.
Russia does not choose its means in this brutal war it is waging. It violates all sorts of agreements it itself has joined. First and foremost, we must focus on how to protect our country, NATO, and the EU. Estonia will, without a doubt, approach this very responsibly.
In Estonia, the current prevailing trend is precisely that we fully realize, unfortunately, and I must emphasize this regrettably, unfortunately, especially after President Donald Trump came to assume the presidency of the White House, that we absolutely must be able to effectively deal with any potential aggression or hostile actions from the Russian Federation entirely on our own. Right now, at this very moment, we are diligently putting a substantial amount of concerted effort into ensuring that we are completely ready and fully prepared to defend ourselves independently and autonomously.
And this is completely at odds with the Kremlin's plans. As military analysts explain, given the pace at which the defensive line is being built in Estonia and the endless string of failures suffered by the Russian army in the war in Ukraine, Putin simply does not have the resources or means to open a full-fledged second front. Which means there is only one scenario left: an information war, primarily targeting the Russian-speaking population of the Baltic countries.
So the largest group consists of those who are ready for all these challenges and support any government initiatives to strengthen our defense capabilities. The second group, which unfortunately is also not small in our country, I don't even know how to describe them. Vatniks, Putinist Russian speakers, the fifth column. Well, there are many names for them. So this is a group of people who, while the first group is preparing to fight back in anticipation of aggression, this second group is waiting for Putin to send in troops to finally liberate them and destroy this damned Estonia, because with every fiber of their being, with all their insides, they hate Estonia. Estonia as a state, Estonia as a culture, Estonia as a language, and everything about our way of life. They simply hate it and can't wait for Putin to give them the order to start wreaking havoc here.
Relying on such supporters of the Russian world, Putin is planning to invade a neighboring country. That is precisely why analysts tend to believe the bunker dweller chose comparatively small Estonia as a potential victim. With a population of less than 1.4 million people, small Russian sabotage groups, under the right circumstances and with the support of Estonia's Russian-speaking population, could try to repeat in Tallinn the scenario of the 2014 annexation of Crimea and Donbass.
Small groups of unidentified men without insignia seize in classic fashion the post office, telephone exchange, telegraph, ATM, electronics store, and liquor market, just as we saw in Donetsk, Luhansk, and Crimea. And after that, the creation of some sort of territorial autonomy is proclaimed. The local population enthusiastically supports it, cheering, hurrah, hurrah, hurrah. Tanks are brought in, and that's it. It's a sovereign republic now, which asks Putin to annex them. So once again, in Donetsk, we saw a small number of genuinely pro-Russian citizens who, in a situation where the authorities were paralyzed and indecisive, managed to organize barricades, seize district police stations, back when it was still the militia, and gained access to firearms. And it really was an avalanche-like movement that was almost impossible to stop, even with the use of the army.
It is precisely this scenario that Russian propagandists are actively discussing on their TV broadcasts. According to their scare stories, Estonia wouldn't last even a few days, and the North Atlantic Alliance wouldn't have time to react before Russian tanks are supposedly under the windows of all the major cities in Europe.
And after that, it's Paris, Berlin, and upon the very ruins of Washington, we will indeed write our own humble names. So that's basically the mood.
But all these wet dreams of Putin and his propagandists are never going to come true. According to analysts, instead of swallowing Estonia, the Kremlin will break its teeth on it. No matter how many supporters of the Russian world live in the Baltic countries, all of them support Putin from the comfort of their own homes, with warm apartments, running water and heating, good pensions, and all the other benefits of life in Europe. And Estonia is no exception here.
This country ranks 10th in the world for quality of life, 6th for economic freedom, and 12th in the Corruption Perceptions Index. By the way, Russia is ranked 141st. It holds first place in Europe for the quality of school education and 4th in the world. The country is consistently at the top of all sorts of other rankings as well. For example, it has the highest number of startups in Europe.
And it's unlikely that even the most ardent supporters of the Russian world would want to trade all this for life in Russia, with its corruption, unemployment, and Putin's total rule.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.